I hate saying I told you so, but actually, no, I like saying I told you so. Hi, I'm King Waspinator. Welcome back to Total Party Skills. I started the channel a couple years ago as a platform to, build an audience for role-playing games I'm writing and self-publishing on DriveThruRPG and on Amazon. I'm just regular Joe, kind of a fella. So it's not exactly like I have a huge advertising budget or a crew or anything. It's just stuff I've been making myself on a Chromebook of all things and putting out there. The product I'm selling is inspiration and ideas. I'm not selling you a book of fancy art and stuff. I intentionally have a aesthetic quality to my products that is supposed to be invoking old-fashioned zines and raw underground punk rock kind of gaming, where I'm leaving an awful lot up to the imagination of the reader to fill in the blanks about what they want things to look like, and or to come up with parts of the setting that I don't detail and things like that, because that is what gaming used to be, and I'm trying to get to the real heart of what the OSR spirit is, and that OSR spirit is not actually the D20 rule system. I think that's why there's so many variants of the OSR. So many different people keep trying to recreate that feeling from the original Dungeons & Dragons box sets from the late 70s and early 80s, and yet none of them quite do it perfectly. And I think part of that problem is that all these books are written by people who are informed by 40-plus years of playtesting that's been going on with the D20 rules. Everyone's familiar with everything at this point. There's no question marks left. Every problem that has cropped up over the years has been solved by one addition or another. And you can't help but to bring that with you when you're trying to write a new version of those old rules. And so you can strip down the power creep and try to get back to the original core classes and races and leveling system and all that kind of stuff. But what you can't recapture is the virgin territory effect that D&D used to have. And that's what I'm trying to replicate with my rule system. My rule system is doing a kind of an interesting ask in and of itself, in that I'm conceptualizing a Beck-me set rule system for White Wolf that had never existed. What if the old storyteller system was actually the advanced storyteller system? But predating that, there had been a much more greatly simplified version of that. Well, that is what the Total Party skill system is. It's skill-based, it's functional, it's very lean, characters don't have a ton of hit points, you're rolling a limited amount of dice, and you're having to sweat those dice rolls a bit more because you're not throwing just ginormous amounts of points around and superpowers and all that other kind of stuff. My games are almost more a survival game in how they play out than they are just like your classic adventure game. Yeah, you have to step with more trepidation when exploring the worlds I have created with my game system. And I encourage people to check it out. In fact, my bias on this channel is that, well, frankly, it's to my best interest if D&D fails and turns off the fan base, because that means that there's a slightly higher likelihood of catching people who are going to be suddenly open-minded to the idea of looking at a product that's a bit more, raw and fresh than these overly polished turds that are for sale out there, that are just keep repeating and regurgitating the same rule systems and the same settings. Oh, another fantasy world based vaguely on medieval Germany and medieval England. How original, Does it have elves in it, perchance? I'm playing with B-movie concepts, pulp fiction kind of concepts, very public domainy kind of stuff. Since I don't have a publisher or any of that kind of stuff backing me, I don't really want to throw myself into something too original, if you catch my distinction. But everything I have is supposed to be just fun, simple concepts that people actually like playing. You can get your head around, you can describe it to your players well, and you can just hop on in and get running with it without very much baggage. And everything's got source books. I've been putting out a bunch of bundle editions. Most of them are on Amazon now, where I collect a core rule book and a bunch of source books together in one larger book to create a more complete role-playing game. for people who, like to have a nice super thick book. Well, now I got one for Ancient Egypt. I got one for Lady Spy Detective. I got one for the saga of the Amazon Time Barbarians. I got one for kind of my general classic horror movie type games. And Vintage Future RPG, which collects all my sci-fi stuff in one volume. And I think the end product way enhances the materials beyond what they were as standalone things, because by combining them, it kind of recontextualizes some aspects of some books to kind of view them in a different kind of light, kind of a thing. So I think it's interesting, and I think you should check it out. But anyway, what was I saying about I told you so? Well, one of the things that I've been talking about on this channel since I started is about the fact that the first, role-playing game book I put out on Drive-Thru RPG was Orc and Bone, which was a OSR setting I made about a world where humanity has disappeared in kind of like a weird anti-rapture event, and now orcs, of all people, find themselves being the ones having to save a bunch of halflings and other kind of hanger-on people who are living on the edges of civilization and are now being attacked by all the weird vampires and monsters that were still lurking in the human cities and are now extra hungry and have been enslaving halflings as blood bags and stuff like that. The thing I found kind of interesting about it, the whole experience, is I really did not like having to copy-paste on the OGL license at the end of it. It actually makes you sit there and think about the language in it a bit more as you're doing it. And I just didn't like the feeling of basically saying that well, none of this I just wrote is actually for me. I'm just, just riding on other people's coattails, yada, yada, yada. It felt like it kind of deflated the sense of purpose to it. I don't know. It's just vague. And also there's just things about it that struck me as kind of aberrant, that a big corporation would allow something like this to be out there. That a company that's hungry for money is just going to kind of freely allow such direct competition. It was strange. And I'd have people explain to me, so-and-so made sure the OGL was there to make sure the Wizards of the Coast couldn't ruin the game for everybody and all that kind of stuff. I'd consulted with the RPG pundit for Orc and Bone, paid him, had a couple Skype conversations with him, about the materials and all that kind of stuff, largely just because I wanted to kind of get somebody in the industry to kind of at least read my stuff and give me some sort of indication whether or not I had any purpose being here. And by his reaction, even if I felt like, okay, I actually have some business in this industry, if I can just get more people to actually look at my stuff and give it a chance. And he was one of the people who was, patted me on the head about my concerns that, well, can't they just take the OGL away? It just seems weird that they'd let this thing be out here. And it's no, man, it'll be fine. The OSR is great. Well, he was wrong. I mean, it's not been officially released, and who knows what kind of litigation stuff might change it. But as of now, as we all know who've been paying attention, the OGL license that Wizards of the Coast is trying to put out to replace the older OGL license invalidates the older OGL licenses because they want to funnel everything back in-house. But that kind of means, though, if they can actually get it to stick that the old OGL is no longer a valid agreement, well, then that basically destroys the bulk of the OSR products that are out there. Not everyone's going to have to pay royalties, obviously, at least not at first. But, they could use it as grounds to blanket have it removed from sites like Drive-Thru RPG or Amazon or other places that provide, RPG products. Just because from a business standpoint, why would you want someone nibbling up your potential customer base, especially when you're now on this thing where you're going to monetize the players? It's no longer just the DMs. The players who are playing those OSR games, they're not buying original hair colors for their elf avatars on D&D Beyond. No, they gotta rope everyone into this as much as possible and crush the competition. And I felt like I've seen it coming. I felt like I've been talking about this whole fucking time, and I don't know, maybe on some level, to be quite honest, it's a little annoying that like plenty of other channels are like getting traction on this topic and, you know, having like, you know, big surges in subscriber count and stuff. And they're just now kind of on the page about this. I predicted this was going to happen. That this greedy ass company that's not at all being run by people anymore who have any attachment to the thing that they're selling, because they're all from different kinds of businesses, and they had just, our whole business culture is not in tune with the culture on the bottom, let's say, in a variety of ways. And this was inevitable. And I don't know. It's just, I guess because I don't pre-script my videos and I'm not dancing around in front of a green screen showing pictures from books and crap like that, and there's no little tinkle of free public domain music underlying my videos, like, you know, like, fuck me, right? I don't know. But those of you who've been watching my channel from the get-go know very well I've been saying these things. I've alienated people by saying stuff like this, like the OSR seems... I don't know, like, it's cool, it has its place, I like the philosophy behind it, but this attachment to the D20 rule system means it's going to forever be living in D&D's shadow, and because it's in that shadow, it rises and falls on D&D's coattails, and since it's in such close proximity to D&D, it doesn't really take D&D all that much to slightly move its foot over and crush it beneath its jackboots. So... here we are. RPG Pundit was wrong. I was right. And God damn it, I deserve a few subscribes for that. So, hit like and subscribe. Check out Total Party Skills on DriveThruRPG, or look up one of my books on Amazon and buy it. And get some real raw, underground, original RPG action that doesn't have all this accumulated baggage that the mainstream D20 system brings. It's time for people to get off the D20. Go, if you want to go play another established, polished game, fine. But like this fascination with this one particular rule set, it's just got to stop. Like, there's plenty of other rules systems to use. All these people who've been writing games wouldn't feel so threatened by the revocation of the OGL if they had just been coming up with their own rule systems or using more forgiving, non-trademarkable rule systems from companies that aren't going to try to pull this kind of shit like Hasbro is. And so, I don't know. Food for thought. Stay waspinated.